Hi, I'm DoubleChinDoge7, or at least I am on this account, but I'm also a self-taught dubstep producer who sometimes goes by Technocosm. Specifically, I tend to like color bass mostly, though occasionally I'll also go for more of an aggressive tear-out style of dubstep. And whenever I get the chance to combine both, I'm in audio heaven. I also used to hate lyrics in music, and even now it's something that's still kind of a little bit alien to me, despite being so par for the course musically in most places. That being said, here's a little taste of what I can do, including some sneak peeks of my next EP, Halcyon Machine, which will actually be my first time doing lyrics for any of my music. Now with that said, Hazbin Hotel is not typically what I would listen to musically, but regardless, I want to be clear going into this. I love Hazbin Hotel. Though a quick disclaimer, for those not already in the know, it's a show infamous for the amount of swearing in it. Now, I'm not particularly bothered by that, but ever since getting monetized, I've been playing it safer than usual with censoring swears on my channel with our beloved bar Rousey. So I just thought it might be a good idea to give you a fair warning that I will not be bothering with that in this video, because I would have to censor a lot, and it would just ruin the music. So there's really just no point.
Huh?
That's considerate of you, Rousey, but there's just no need this video. Oh, alright, yeah, first minute of the video, fair point. Okay, well, thanks. But you don't have to do that anymore from here on out. As I was saying though, I have been a fan of the show since the pilot released, and honestly, with the release of Season 2, I feel pretty confident I could call it my favourite show ever right now. No, that maybe sounds a little bit over the top, and maybe part of that's just because I don't watch a whole lot of shows, but I don't know, when I think of stuff that could dethrone it for me, I mostly just think of Better Call Saul, and maybe the Gaslight District, but even then, the Gaslight District's only got one episode. Maybe when it's a full series. Safe to say, I really like the show, and I think it's absurdly overhated online. I have a lot of love in my heart for it, but with that love comes opinions. And there's certainly an argument to be made that Season 2 came with more quantity than quality, and more style than substance when compared to Season 1. Now, I think there's some truth to that, but I think that sometimes people go a little bit overboard when they say that. That being said though, at the very least, the 20 songs in Season 2 makes it very easy to split it right down the middle, with a bottom 10, followed by a top 10 later down the line to rank every single song in the season. Little spoiler here though, I think the vast majority of Hazbin songs are in fact good. Usually on first listen, I only like about 60% of them, but that's still quite a lot. And then on rewatch, the vast majority of them grow on me a lot. So after giving every one enough time to fully appreciate, I usually end up liking more than like 90% of the music that the show has to offer. For that reason, you probably won't be surprised to hear there are a lot more songs I like overall in this bottom 10 than songs that I don't. So for the sake of clarity, I'm going to make very clear when we're moving from the trash to the mid to the good stuff. Oh, and obviously, for a video like this, copyright is a concern, of course. So I took this as an excuse to get a bit more creative with my green screening. I mean, hey, it works, doesn't it? It also lets me dump a little spare gameplay footage here for those who have already seen the songs a million times and don't need to see the animation again. Just before we jump into the real ranking though, I'd like to make the criteria as clear as possible. Now don't worry, most of it is pretty free-flowing, and just what you'd expect. I score them based on how much I enjoy them now that I've re-listened to them all many times, so that they all get a fair shot. But there is one big point of consideration to worry about. I'm gonna like songs that feel more necessary to the story or come at bigger moments typically, of course. But then there's an argument to be made that that's no longer the music I'm actually appreciating. That's the music getting carried by the story. The thing is though, at the end of the day, in an animated musical like this, the music and the theatre, or perhaps one could say, absolute cinema, those two aspects are kind of inseparable. They both become complete parts of each other, and ultimately that is the way the show is intended to be enjoyed. For that reason, perhaps a little controversially, I'm not only going to be granting points for the way the song drives forward the story or the character development it might provide based on how necessary and effective it feels, but also take it a step even further and even allow good visuals and animation accompanying the song to count towards its score, at least in some small way. In other words, yes, the hype moments and aura farming do in fact grant bonus points, I'm sorry. It's just there are a few songs that I absolutely love what they are in the show, but if I was to judge them purely musically, they would go a lot lower, and that would feel very wrong to me, because in the show, it's some of my favorite moments in the show. I feel like that's just judging it all wrong, though I can certainly understand an argument to try and focus on just the music. I completely understand that some are going to disagree with this, but I would just rather rank these songs as moments in the show, taking into account all aspects of their spectacle combined, rather than ranking them as music to play in the background while playing Minecraft or something, I don't know. Oh, and as a little bonus, I'll also be using a short clip of my favorite part of each song, even if it's a song I hate, at the start of each ranking. So this can double as a little showcase of my favorite lines, and yes, aura farming moments. With all that said, I think we're ready to jump into the first entry for this list. And in fact, the only song in the currently 36-song long soundtrack for both seasons combined, I actually consider to be actively bad. Speedrun to Redemption is the worst song in the entire show. I feel like that shouldn't be too surprising a take, but I have seen a couple rankings online that concern me, so maybe it is a bit of a hot take. Hopefully though, most of you will be on the same page here. Now there's something I want to get out of the way really fast. Charlie is, yes, killing it in the vocals here, in fairness, if you want to defend this song. She sings extremely well in it. But you see, here's the problem. I really do think the voice cast of Hazbin Hotel is very impressive. I don't even recognize them for their star power. I don't know a lot of celebrities, especially not ones in musical theatre, so most of these people, I didn't know who they were before Hazbin. That being said, you can hear the talent on display here. What I'm trying to say here is every single time I have had a song that needs to go towards the bottom, I have a moment of, oh, but that's harsh because they sing so well in the song. But then I'll realize, wait, they sing so well in every song in the entire goddamn show. Nothing's gonna be at the bottom if, oh, but they sing it well even if everything else is bad is enough to get it out of the bottom. Unfortunately, there does have to be a song that has a good performance but still has to take the fall as the worst ranked song in the entire show. So yeah, I'll make it clear. I can absolutely recognize that Erica playing Charlie here is killing it on the vocals. With all that said, let's talk about why I don't like this song. First of all, if we're talking purely the instrumental, music-wise, this is very forgettable. It is what I like to call musical theatre slop. Just sort of a mishmash of general classical instruments, but not even really playing a classical style. The genre is just kind of indistinct and general musical theatre stuff. And as a result, it ends up simultaneously not really committing to any one genre or style, but also not even really being interesting in its refusal to commit, because it's just kind of a slurry of general stuff you'd expect in musical theatre. I say as if I know a lot about musical theatre, I don't. But I think this is something where we will be able to agree on pure vibes. It also feels vaguely like this song is supposed to be funny and that it's trying to be funny, but I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I don't think it'd be too controversial to say it's not really a very funny song. If anything, it's kind of more annoying. It doesn't help that this punctuates what is widely seen as the worst moment in the entire show so far. Not only Charlie being stupid enough to invite Vox and Velvet over to the hotel, thinking they're going to actually cover a good story about her when they're slandering her constantly, but then also gladly throwing Angel Dust under the bus to try and salvage the situation, only to make things worse very predictably. I really want to get fully into this, but the problem is then I would just make an entire video on what is wrong with this point in the plot. And to be honest, I don't really think I have to get into all that much detail, because it sounds like almost everyone who watched the show was on the same page in this moment. That basically everyone hates Charlie in this episode. Now, would I go that far? Not me personally. I definitely am a big fan of Charlie as a character, But that being said, that also made me hate the episode even more, because I usually like her, and here I still sympathized with her and understood why she was acting the way she did, but that didn't mean I liked to watch it, especially because I did feel like it was a bit too stupid even for Charlie. Like, yeah, she's not supposed to be the smartest one of the group, but she's also not presented as actively stupid, just maybe a little bit naive and energetic. But in this episode, she is genuinely an inconsiderate idiot, and this song is kind of the peak of that, so yeah, it's not a surprise that people aren't gonna like it. Maybe at the very least, if I could accept that there is some deeper meaning and subtext, and that I just don't like stomaching the moment, but it has something important to say, I could probably give this song a higher score. But I just don't think there really is much deeper characterization or importance to any of this song. I feel like it's just kind of here to move the plot along a little bit and fill in the second song slot for episode 3. And just to end this one off, I've got to say it. There is one moment that practically had my jaw drop with just how much of a character assassination of Charlie it is. And that is that I think it is absolutely wild just how casually they have Charlie drop at the end of the song the suggestion that Angel fucking killed themselves to be redeemed and go to heaven. Yep, very normal behavior right here. Now, in fairness, that blow is very much softened by the realization after the song that she isn't actually going to put him in mortal danger, she's just going to put him in a situation that looks like it's going to put him in mortal danger. But even still, just having that moment of ambiguity where you're actually like, wait, is she just casually suggesting that Angel should just simply die, just so that she can get some good press for the hotel? That was a horrible moment to sit in, and even now that it has a much more understandable explanation, it still feels a bit like, well, why the hell would it work? It's like she says in the song, if you give up your life with pure intentions, but they're staging the situation, which is kind of ruining the whole pure intentions part. Okay, I can't stick on this any longer because it's just more and more becoming a complaint about episode 3 as a whole rather than this song. But yeah, this is the worst moment in the entire show. I think most people are on the same page here. So Speedrun to Redemption goes as the worst song in Hazbin Hotel Season 2 to me, as a 3 out of 10. Even then, it really could be worse. Moving on to the songs that I consider mid, we get into my second least favorite song of the season. I've been watching a lot of interviews from people behind the show recently. Sam Haft, the songwriter for the show, was asked a question about which song was completed the fastest, which one just came together nice and quickly. And they ended up revealing that there was one song for season 2 that was completed so quickly it was quite literally done in an afternoon. Now, I'm not denying that it's possible that you can make a song in an afternoon and it can be fully complete, fully done, sound fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But still, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't like this song that much. And I feel like I can hear that it was completed in an afternoon. Like, before he said it, I'm like, I have a feeling it's this one. Because I think Clean It Up is the second worst song in this season. And some people might hate me for that because they love Nifty, but like, let's be real. If we're judging this as a song in its own right, I hope at least even if you like the song, you can see why it's pretty understandable. Like, don't get me wrong, it's kind of funny, and the sudden anime bit was a pleasant surprise. Otherwise though, it's just the most obviously filler song ever. That same interview, Sam Haft actually did feel like he was being almost a little bit too transparent about the fact that apparently they were asked to do more songs for season 2, and he didn't say there were filler songs, but it kind of sounded a little bit like, oh yeah, so we had to add a couple songs in there that didn't really need to be in there just for the sake of filling it out. And Clean It Up just feels like the most egregious example there. It is absolutely irrelevant to the story. It doesn't really tell us anything more about the world, plot, or characters for the most part, except that Nifty believes in Charlie's dream, I guess, if you can understand her during the Japanese part. But even then, I know that wasn't explicitly stated, and at least it's nice to have that be explicitly something that Nifty has said, even if in Japanese now. But like, I think you could pretty much get that at this point, even if she didn't directly say it yet. And music-wise, it's just very forgettable, very standard, not a lot of crazy expression or moments. And in fact, I feel the worst saying this one because I know how good a lot of the voice talent on the show is. So I realize I might be poking a hornet's nest here, but I also feel like I should just be transparent. Nifty's singing voice is great at emphasizing funny lines and conveying energy. But at least based off this song, it didn't really come off to me as an actually particularly captivating cadence for singing. The more I re-listened to this track, I realized that's part of the reason I couldn't get into it, is that, like, other than lines that are just funny when you haven't seen it before and it's your first time watching, there weren't really any lines that I remember like, oh my god, the way they sing that's so good. And I get that so often with Hazbin, but I didn't have a single moment of that in this song. And again, I want to make it clear, this is not really a hit against the voice talent here, because I'm pretty convinced that anyone involved in the show is probably a pretty damn good singer. But it can also be true that you can just have a character where it's very hard to sing in their voice and have it be good. And it might just be the case that that is what we have to deal with when it comes to Nifty. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of Clean It Up. I mean, it was kind of funny the first time, but I would have rather a song that would actually tell us a little something more about Nifty's character at the very least, if it really did have to be a filler song that didn't advance the plot at all and didn't need to happen. For all those reasons, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. Okay, so at the very least, our bottom 2 picks so far have been songs I don't expect to get too much backlash for. I think most people are on a similar page with Speedrun to Redemption, and while I definitely see a lot more people that like Clean It Up, certainly I don't think it's too hard to admit that those people probably like it more so for either the fan servicey stuff with, like, you know, the anime references, or they like it because it's funny, which is different than liking it because it's, you know, a good song. So hopefully at least we can come to an understanding there. This is the first ranking where I'm actually a little concerned that people are going to hate me for this one, and I won't be able to explain myself. I feel like to a lot of people there just seems to have been an inexplicable magic to this track that I am trying to see, but I just don't see it. Because it's a popular one, but I just think it's mid. That is, Once We Get Up There. Now once again, let me be clear. As usual, the V's carry this track with their vocals. I absolutely admit there are so many lines that the voice talent here gives so much more life to that really gives the song all its redeeming qualities that do exist. That being said, I just can't give it too many points for that when once again, every song in this entire show for the most part has that going for it. So that alone is not enough to convince me. Though to be fair, I'll also admit the animations of the movements of everyone in this song are borderline hypnotic. I don't know, the movements are just all so smooth and so satisfying to watch unfold. It's really good. And of course, as usual, Vox being the favorite of the fandom, and yeah, I kind of hate giving into the popular opinion here, but I also am not going to lie to myself. Vox is probably the strongest voice in the entire show. So yeah, Vox unsurprisingly adds a lot of life here to an otherwise boring song with as many inflections that liven it up. Music-wise though, outside some minor touches here and there, pretty forgettable again. Kind of just more of that musical theatre slop. Just quite simply, other than the way a couple lines are said, there is nothing about this song I find particularly interesting. Also, I might not be able to convince you here because I understand how you could disagree here, but for me personally, I feel like this song feels kind of unnecessary. Don't get me wrong, having a villain song is pretty, you know, well-established tradition, and having a villain song early on to establish their motivations and their plan, that also seems pretty sensible. The main issue is, though, that we kind of already have Vox explain the plan, and it's a pretty simple plan that doesn't really need a whole song. The only reason he needs to sing it is because they do this whole bit of Valentino being so dumb he doesn't understand the plan if it isn't given to him in song form. But like I say, I feel like this song doesn't feel too necessary, especially when not only do we already understand the plan, but it doesn't really tell us anything more about the V's. If it did, I feel like I could give it so many more points, but even when we get into the bad guy stuff in this song, it's also just generally vague, evil, mwahaha stuff that it doesn't even really feel like it characterizes the V's specifically all too much. Also, I'm not gonna lie, this could very much seem like complete overanalysis of just one small bit, but this nags me a lot, so I've just gotta say it. There's a section towards the middle of the song where they have two bits that are very different, very close together, very intentionally so. And I get the thing they're doing, but I don't like it, regardless. So there's this bit in the middle where it suddenly goes to an almost lullaby-like instrumental with all these soft bells, with the V's singing along to it. And I will admit, this actually is probably purely musically my favorite part of the song. I think it sounds quite pleasant. But in terms of tone, it just seems very weird. What is the point of this lullaby bit? Is it supposed to represent Charlie because they're singing about how that dumb princess showed us the way? If it's supposed to, then they really haven't established that. They're usually very consistent with using certain instruments for certain characters, and they haven't really used like music box bells, lullaby kind of style with Charlie before, as far as I can recall. I feel like the only reason they have this sudden switch up is so that they can later contrast it with the sudden evil, ominous bit with Vox talking about how he's gonna be so evil, he's gonna be such a bad guy to the people when he becomes God. But then it kind of gets worse because I don't even really like the ominous bit. It kind of sacrifices sounding good for the sake of having the intended tonal whiplash. But I just don't get the point of it. Like, Vox is evil. Cool. We really already knew that. It might help if we got more of an idea of what specific evil things he would want to do, but once again, he's just extremely vague and generic with his evil in the song, just saying he'll trap and torture everyone or end them just for fun. It's just very wishy-washy general bad guy stuff. As I say, maybe I'm getting a bit too finicky here, but I've been trying to look for why so many other people are captivated by this song, but I feel like I'm just not seeing it. Even then, I don't think it's bad. I'm giving it a 5 out of 10, perfectly middle of the road. But yeah, I definitely don't see where the love for the song comes from. Next up is Don't You Forget, the original. And once again, Rosie and Alistair are killing it on the vocals here, as usual. And plot-wise, what this song tells us may be pretty simple, but we do get some nuggets of deeper characterization of Alistair and Rosie communicated through this song. Not enough to put it higher, but enough to earn at least a little bit of respect from me. I have to admit though, this isn't really particularly a style of music I go for, though I at least appreciate that this song commits to a style rather than, once again, being musical theatre slop. I feel like a lot of the previous songs in this list really didn't do that, and I'll always prefer a song that commits to a style that I don't like than a song that just kind of becomes a slurry of whatever is there. I don't have a problem with mixing genres if I feel like the combination is something relatively inventive and unique. But as I say, with a lot of these previous songs, it doesn't even feel like the mix of genres is interesting or unique. Again, it just kind of feels like a slop. You know, you'd think I might have more to say here, but I really don't. I just feel like this song is very serviceable. I guess I could say that for the voice of Alistair, Amir, I think this is one of his better performances. I do think he's very good, but also, again, considering everyone is very good here, funnily enough, despite his reputation, I think Alistair's usually on the slightly lower end of voices for this show. Again, still a great voice. Again, everyone in the show is really good. But here in particular, I think he comes off very strong, and every line has that little bit of extra vice injected in there. By the same token though, I don't know, I feel like this song is in this position where it feels like it's just barely justified its existence enough that I wouldn't want to complain about it being unnecessary, but it also does feel like, if you deleted this song and just moved on with the plot, how much would it really change?
Shut up. Don't you forget, you ain't one yet.
It probably shouldn't come as a huge surprise that for the last entry in the mid category, we have the reprise of Don't You Forget later in that same episode. One which I must admit I'm also probably going to be pretty brief with. You see, Rosie already does a great job here, but Vox's singing is just uncontested in this show, so Vox bumps it up a bit in terms of quality for me. Not to mention, I think Amir's performance is even better here. I mean, I don't think anyone here would be surprised when I say that I think probably my favourite sung line from Alistair in the entire show so far is that "You ain't one yet" in this song in particular. It also gets some extra points for the multiple callbacks and reprisals of other songs all throughout, but otherwise it's basically just the other half of the previous entry. I mean, they're both very similar songs. Maybe I could have given it even more points if I felt that Vox and Alistair's backstory was particularly interesting, but I'm going to be completely honest. I think that Vox and Alistair's backstory was a big disappointment. I'm still holding out hope that maybe it gets better, but so far it's looking very boring. And so I don't think I can really give extra points for that. Either way, it just occurred to me I forgot to mention the score for Don't You Forget, but it's fine because these are both the same song anyway, basically. I give the original a 6 out of 10 and the reprise a 6.5.
We literally will have forever to chill.
And now we've officially made it to the decent category. From this point forward, I really do like every song in this list, even if it still makes the bottom 10. Speaking of which, for our number 6 spot, we have a song that maybe would have seemed conspicuously absent to some of you so far. Because while I'm not going to be delusional and tell you it's actually secretly amazing, I do think it is kind of an overlooked song that's actually pretty decent in my opinion, but to most people just seems boring because it's sandwiched between two absolute bangers. That being Like You. In fairness, part of this might just be me. You see, I actually really like and go for the more synthetic and gentle but energetic music they have going for Heaven in this show. I know that we haven't really had a lot of Heaven songs, so it might seem like I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but they were kind of going for that already in Welcome to Heaven. It was just the choice to use organs as the main instruments just because, you know, you think Heaven, you think organs and church and all that. Kind of didn't do it justice. Point being, they tried this direction before in season 1 and it made for one of the least popular songs in the soundtrack. I think mostly just because I think organs weren't really a great choice there. But now that they don't have to do the organ thing again, they can just do the whole synthetic, upbeat, maybe even a little poppy music. It's actually really good. It's also another song that, depending on your perspective, could just be seen as another funny song, not to be taken seriously, but honestly, I do feel like it matters personally. I think character-wise, it feels pretty important. We didn't really get to see the true depths of just how bad they would be at introducing someone from hell to heaven until this song. Not to mention, I think it's pretty catchy, and my god. Serpentious' vocals got a huge upgrade this season. This isn't the only song where he's killing it. Maybe this is going to be a little bit of a less popular take as well, but honestly, I think that Abel, St. Peter, and Emily together make for a really satisfying trio of voices. I think they all cover each other's voices, strengths, and weaknesses really well when sung together. Also, as you probably got by the fact I used it as the clip at the start of this one, the "we literally will" is so goddamn funny. I'm so glad they overlapped it over Serpentious going, "No, no, no," as if it's being said in response. To be fair, so far, I've basically just talked about why I love this song when it's still towards the bottom. That's just because I'm also not going to be crazy here. Yeah, it's not the most important song, even if there are some aspects of it I feel that go overlooked. That being said, I've basically just sat here and talked about why I love this song so much, when nominally it's still in the bottom 10. Again, that's just because of the fact that we're at the point where we're at the songs I like now. There's just that many I like that they still have to end up towards the bottom. But also beyond that, I must admit, I feel like this song is just capped by the fact that it just isn't that important, and there are so many other songs that have so much more to work with. I guess I want to give this song some love because I think for what it is and what it needs to be, it's basically as good as it physically can be. But that it was also never going to be the highlight of the season or anything. With all that said, 7 out of 10.
Everyone's gone, we're facing a war. We can't get in touch with anyone anymore, man. Shut up, you.
Yeah, this next one hurts. Like, if you're angry at me for placing this one in the bottom 10, I don't even, want to bother arguing back because I'm angry at me for having to put this in the bottom 10. But I also don't want to lie to myself because I do think that I have to put this in the bottom 10. 7th worst song this season is Easy. And I hate to say it, because I'll admit, I absolutely love Charlie and Baggy's relationship in the show so much. I'm a little obsessed with it, I'm not gonna lie. It's my favorite couple in all of fiction, probably at this point. So I absolutely loved this song on first listen as a result. Of course I loved it on first listen. It was cute, it was energetic, the visuals were stunning, the chorus was really catchy too. Honestly, I kind of loved that the start of the song is so abrupt it practically jump scared me in song form too. I thought that was really funny, but also really cute. And it was just very satisfying watching these two make up. But that being said, this song just didn't stick with me as much as I'd hoped it would. I don't know how else to put this than to say I feel the singing here is genuinely good, of high quality, but also just kind of flat compared to the high standards the show sets. There isn't a lot of inflection or emotion in most of the lines. They are simply sung nicely, but don't convey anything really. And I don't even really think that's on the voice talent either, annoyingly. I think it's just the writing of the song is a little shallow. It's not bad, but it doesn't go very deep. It doesn't really tell us anything we don't already know about Charlie and Vaggie, and so it also doesn't really give the voice talent a lot to work with other than just, well, sing it nicely. Maybe I could give it a bit of a pass if this was the first time that Charlie and Vaggie had a bit of a falling out in the show and had to make up. And it already happened towards the build-up to the finale of season 1, and when it happened there, I'm just gonna be real with you, they did it so much better. I still don't think that the way they break up in season 2 feels all too bad. It feels believable, and the way they come back is relatively nice, but it also just feels like it's so much less important and so much less interesting. Whereas I feel like the way it was treated in season 1 was just so wonderfully nuanced, even if we didn't get a song about it in season 1. It's not even that, like, the way they did it in season 2 is bad, it's more the way they did it in season 1 was perfect, and then they're like, hey, let's do it again, but just do it okay this time. And it's like, I mean, you still did it okay, but why did you bother doing it again when not only did you already do this last season under very similar circumstances, but then on top of that, you did it so perfectly last season, no matter how you did it this season, it was gonna feel like a downgrade. And like, yeah, you definitely didn't do it super well this season, so it felt like a downgrade. As I say, I still hold on to how much I loved this song when I first listened to it, and I still think it just sounds nice. It's a very catchy, very pleasant song, but I just don't want to give it too many points when I do feel that that shallowness is really choking it and holding it back. But hey, at least we got one good thing out of this. At least we finally got Gex!
Okay.
Gex Guy from the Scott the Wazzaverse would be very proud.
Oh, is it Gex Night? I love Gex Night. Yeah, let's fire up Gex.
Easy gets a 7.5 out of 10.
Is in the eyes of the beholder. Jim never lied.
Oh god, did you think it was over, the gauntlet of songs that you're probably going to be mad at me for putting in the bottom 10, even if we both admit we like it? I just like it a teeny bit less. Well, next up is Love in a Bottle. I'm sorry. Listen, we'll start with the good. If Vox has any competition for best voice in the show, it's gotta be Husker. The singing here is so smooth, lively, and filled with inflection, expressing tone and emotion. The song's super catchy too, and it's got a very distinct style. It's also just nice that we finally get to see the kind of place that Husker used to rule over, even if it is about what we would have expected. But that being said, once again, does it really tell us anything we didn't already know about Husk? Man, I hate to keep repeating this, because again, I think there's a lot that is skimmed over in season 2. A lot to love that the average viewer seems to really, really miss. That being said, I have to admit, one of my biggest problems with season 2 is there's a lot of situations where it feels like characters are just doing their character arcs on repeat. They're just redoing what they already did in season 1, and while I'm not saying there's differences and those differences don't matter, it definitely sticks out when the differences don't matter so much. There are some areas where I feel like the differences are much more noticeable and very important, and sometimes under-discussed. And there are some areas where it's like, yeah, we're just doing this again. I guess I like that this acts as a bit of an opposite to Loser Baby, while now Husk is the one at his lowest point, being comforted by Angel rather than the other way around. But other than that, Loser Baby just feels like the superior song here in almost every way when you compare them. Like, I really don't know what you're getting out of this song that you aren't getting out of Loser Baby. Now that is a little harsh, considering Loser Baby is one of the most beloved songs in the entire show, and for good goddamn reason. But just, I struggle to see the point in having this song happen, really. Other than just to be like, hey, look, this is what the gambling place is like. And it's like, sure, I guess I did want to see that. I kind of hope that it might give us a bit more insight to what makes Husker tick, rather than just, hey, did you know he likes drinking and gambling even though it hurts him? And it's like, yep, we got that. We got that part. We already knew that. I guess we've never really been shown it in this way, in fairness, but it's not really showing us anything we weren't expecting to see. There are plenty of moments where Husker's really doing a good job on the vocals, but once again, I think the best moments of this song are still outshined by the best moments of Loser Baby. So if I ever want to listen to a song like this, I'm probably just going to listen to Loser Baby instead. That being said, it's still of course a decent song, and it gets a 7.5 out of 10. We're moving into the good category now. And there is one more song I am probably going to be crucified for putting in this video, even if it still literally makes it into the good category. But let me tell a little story first. You know, Christian Ball, voice of Vox, said something in an interview one time. Well, I think he might have actually said it in a couple different interviews. And it haunted my thoughts for a while, trying to comprehend it. He said that even though he always had faith that Hazbin Hotel would make it big, he's still amazed to see what a success the show has ended up being, which is nice to hear. But what he's also said is that now, knowing in hindsight how huge it is, he said he felt he should have done a better job with the voice work in season 1 and 2 for Vox. You see, they were both fully recorded before the first season actually ever released to the public. He would have been singing Vox Populi before anyone had even seen past the pilot. Weird to think about, I know. Now, it's a nice humble sentiment, but it also bothered me a little. Frankly, because I wanted to know, what did he even think that he could have done better? He is widely regarded as the best voice in the entire show. A show, mind you, packed with a star-studded cast of absolutely premium voice talent. That is no small feat. Hell, even despite the show having one of the biggest hate-doms around it I've ever seen, even the haters of the show admit they like Vox and that he's the best part of the show. To many of them, he is the only redeemable part of the show. And that is the mark of a truly generational, legendary performance. After hearing this quote, I went back listening through practically every Vox line in every song, looking for one where he wasn't absolutely nailing it, that he might have reasonably felt that he dropped the ball on even just the tiniest bit. But for a while, I just came up completely empty. Even when I was trying to look for mistakes, I was only finding maybe a couple lines that he could put a bit more oomph into. But even then, most of those lines were lines that felt like they weren't supposed to be emphasized and were supposed to be quite low-key. So even then, there's a pretty strong argument to be made that if he acted any more than he already was doing, it would feel out of place for a line that isn't supposed to be super important. For every line where it mattered, he was killing it. What could he possibly be talking about when he says he feels like he should have done a better job? And then it clicked. There's always been one Vox song that I've felt weird about. A song that feels big and hype from the outside looking in. But actually listening to it, it just rings a little hollow to me for most of the runtime. Even then, to be clear, I think Christian does a good job here overall. But to me, this is the only song I could possibly imagine him talking about when he says to himself, I could have done better. I realize it's basically a headcanon at this point. He could be talking about so many different things, and I'll probably never get a confirmation. But to me, this will always be the song I think of when he says, I could have done a better job. The only problem is, there is a non-zero chance that I will be crucified for saying it. It's Brighter. Okay, so let me be clear. The beginning and end of this song are legendary. Vox has never sounded this bloodthirsty, and the imagery is just mesmerizing. I mean, come on, there's a reason Rome is a meme in the fandom. It's just... I never thought I'd be so enamored with how someone just says the word Rome at the start of a song. That being said, even on first listen, I was weirdly mixed on this song. I had this weird feeling like I was kind of excited by it, but that I also wasn't sure if I really enjoyed it by the time it finished. And for a while I thought it just needs to grow on me. But every re-listen, I just felt the same, like it was still kind of exciting and it felt like something big just happened, but it also just kind of felt like it didn't satisfy me. It didn't feel right. I think it took me a while, though, to put my finger on it, just because of the fact that oftentimes some of the most memorable parts you take a lot of notes on are towards the beginning and end. The fact that everything that bothers me about this song is sandwiched in the middle makes it harder to pick at. The problem is that the middle chunk of this song that, in my opinion, doesn't really live up to the mythology of this great villain song is also the vast majority of its runtime. Now, once again, let's be fair. I do like the 80s synthwave stuff, and the respaces that come in later are a pleasant surprise, especially from a basshead like me. But is it just me, or is the rock stuff really flat and out of place? It's just vaguely bad guy coded, and it feels like that's the only reason it's there. I mean, don't get me wrong. Rock is definitely not one of my favorite genres, but I can like it. I mean, spoilers I guess for the list later when I get to the top 10, but you're probably not surprised to hear that I love Vox Populi, and my favorite bit is the metal introduction with Lucifer. That is one of the best sections of any song in this season. That is an example of a time where there was a rock track, and even though it's not really my genre, I absolutely thoroughly loved it. But here, I'm just gonna be real with you, I hate it. I don't really feel like electric guitars are particularly representative of Vox, especially for his villain song, whereas the 80s synthwave stuff is a lot more unique and much more fitting for him, as well as the respaces and some of the more orchestral touches towards the end. The electric guitars here, on the other hand, kind of feel just completely out of place. They don't match the vibe. They just kind of feel vaguely, ooh, evil, he's gonna do bad stuff, watch out, he's gonna do bad stuff. And on top of that, they are playing very repetitive riffs with very little expression. Part of what makes the rock part so much better in Vox Populi is that the guitars are so much more expressive and exciting. Whereas here, they're just so flat and boring. Hell, even the 80s synthwave stuff slowly falls into that trap where I feel like the instrumental gets really, really static and boring and unexpressive as it moves on. Not to mention, sometimes the flow and the key changes just feel a bit off here in this song. Now that being said, as much as I am going to headcanon it as my answer now that this is the song that Christian probably thinks of when he says, I could have done a better job, even though he still did an amazing job. Even if that's the answer I'm going to fill into that blank, I still don't even really think a lot of the song's problems are his fault. But I do think towards the middle of the song, considering he's just kind of vaguely singing about how evil you gotta be to make it in this world, he doesn't really have a lot to work with. Like, yeah, I think part of the reason I don't like the middle of the song so much is that I don't really feel like there's a lot of interesting inflection going on in the voice. And when there is, it just seems to be sort of, ooh, I'm evil, I'm delighting in how evil I am, ooh, look at how evil I am. But I also kind of don't blame Christian for that, because I do look at this song and I'm like, what else are you supposed to do with this? But hey, buddy, don't be so hard on yourself, I say, completely assuming this is the song you mean when you say you could have done better. If you don't mean this song, I have no idea what you mean. You did perfectly. Stop beating yourself up. Okay, with all that said, here's a bunch of miscellaneous little tidbits that I just really want to include in here, but maybe aren't so important if I'm honest with myself. As a backstory for Vox, I feel like this does work, but I feel like it doesn't feel particularly interesting or unexpected. It didn't really surprise me. I was kind of expecting something a little bit more interesting, especially when they dropped that he was a cult leader just very casually earlier, but they didn't really elaborate on it for a while. There was a brief period of a few weeks where the fandom got to kind of make up ideas of what Vox might have been like when he was alive, before at the end of the season we actually got to see it. And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like most of the ideas that the fandom came up with were more interesting than his actual backstory. In particular, especially after Vox Populi, but before Brighter, there were a lot of people who kind of saw him as a bit of a televangelist, which to me personally, I still struggle to unsee even now we've been shown that isn't what he was like, because I feel like it would just fit so well. With that being said, the tidbits that are definitely irrelevant to the ranking, but I just have to include. For one, my god, this image is just the most Persona 4 image in existence that isn't actually from Persona 4. Like, this is just so Persona 4 coded. Please tell me I'm not the only one seeing this. Lastly, there was something that was bugging me by the time the song finished. Something that I was thinking that apparently no one else really thought, or at least if they did, I haven't heard anyone talking about it. Obviously, towards the end of the song, we get to see how Vox actually dies, ironically a TV falling on his head. And don't get me wrong, it's cheesy and contrived, but it is also very entertaining, funny, and fitting. That being said, I feel like it's not as contrived as people maybe think it is, because, okay, just hear me out. I feel like everyone who's watched this has just assumed, oh yeah, it was just a freak accident, a TV fell on his head. But like, literally the entire song is us seeing Vox orchestrating things that are supposed to look like accidents so he can kill off his competition. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the song, he dies to a freak accident that is so comical and so hard to believe, it looks just like one of the kind of ridiculous accidents he would orchestrate to kill someone else off. Doesn't it seem way more likely that rather than Vox actually dying to a freak accident, instead someone probably took some notes, realizing what he was doing, and decided to use his own methods against him, essentially killing him off using his own tricks to grab all the power that he'd stolen from everyone else? Don't get me wrong, they definitely leave it ambiguous, but that's certainly the read that I take away from the end of the song, because that seems so much more likely than, oh yeah, a TV just fell on his head because that's funny. Personally, I just find that a much more interesting and cathartic end to Vox's story than just some freak accident. That being said, it doesn't really factor that much into the ranking of this song, because in fairness, they leave it ambiguous enough that I'm not even really sure if this is intentional, but I feel like it probably should be. I feel like that's what we were supposed to think, but maybe that's just me. With all that said, Brighter still gets an 8 out of 10. It is still a good song. It's just unfortunate that I love all the songs in the show so much that even an 8 out of 10 gets you the 9th worst position.
Rises higher, things aren't like they were before. And if he glows any bright.
But all that finally brings us to the final ranking. The best of the worst, the middle of the road. For the 10th worst song in season 2, I put When I Think About the Future. And despite the fact it's the one to end this video off, and so that kind of means, you know, there's a little bit of pressure to put a bit more effort into it, put a bit more pizzazz into it. I'm just gonna struggle, honestly. When I Think About the Future is a very hard song to rank because it's just such a mishmash of, like, everything. I mean, it's good, I like it, but like, how do you rank it when it's basically like 6 different songs mishmashed together within the span of a couple minutes? I guess you could spend a little bit of time talking about how it's appealing having so many different characters join in on one song, especially in a show that's so known for its amazing voice talent with so many great voices to choose from. Speaking of which, I guess I could have a little aside to say that I'm pretty sure this is the only line that Baxter has sung in the entire show so far, and it's actually surprisingly good. I never even considered the fact that Baxter might sing in the future, and so obviously he's got to have a good singing voice, and damn, I actually kind of like it. I'm saying this based off of literally one line though so far, so, you know. Alistair's bit is funny, and while there have been some parts that I've criticized for being funny rather than good, I think this is both funny and it sounds good, so no problems here. Valentino's bit is a pleasant surprise, actually. I genuinely think it's probably the best part of the entire song. Though I definitely have a big soft spot for big uplifting string sections in more classical style music. So that's probably a big part of why I like it so much. But even then, it kind of ping-pongs from being funny at the start to then genuinely being quite powerful, especially when he starts using the metaphor that Vox kind of created in his song earlier in the episode of brightness. All that just to have Vel cut in with her section that's made so much funnier by the triumphant background music being mixed with Vox is an asshole. Now, I've been complimenting most of the sections, but I will say Lucifer's little bit is just kind of pointless. I don't know why it exists. It's not sung particularly well, but I don't know how they're even supposed to sing it, so that's not even a knock against the voice actor. It just kind of feels like, oh yeah, we gotta have everyone in this song. Let's just throw Lucifer in just to be like, oh, what's going on? Okay, bye, next part of the song. And okay, maybe this is why this song just can't quite escape the bottom 10, because it does slowly go off the rails as it progresses. You see, much as I'm happy to see a Gravity reprise, considering that's kind of the fan favorite song of the entire show right now, I also just don't think the reprise sounds all too good. I at least appreciate the idea of having Abel try and join in and sing along with it, but it sounds like to have it fit in this song, they have changed the tempo and maybe even the key of the original song, and I feel like that just makes it come off as a lot weaker than it did in the original track. All that being said, I still want to give this an 8 out of 10 because Sarah's conclusion really saves it in my eyes. There's not really a whole lot to say about it, it just brings the song back to a much more quiet and serious moment, just very effectively, with some really nice orchestral touches along the way, and doing a great job of just building up the tension and the anticipation for the big finale after this song. Speaking of which, one last small detail I really appreciate about the song that might seem really small, but I feel like actually gives it a lot of bonus points for me. I really like that the episode just ends with this song. I'm pretty sure they basically never do that. So far, I'm pretty sure the only time they have ever ended an episode on a song is the finale of season 1. That extra bit of finality from having Sarah's much more tense and quiet part of the song end the entire episode really builds up the hype and anticipation for the finale to come after the song. So I really appreciate that decision. With that being said, that rounds out my bottom 10. However, this season still has 10 songs left that I haven't ranked in this video. So you'll have to wait until I get a follow-up video on the top 10 songs, but until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.